views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Welcome to today's verdict. I'm your host and trial attorney, David Lesch. We have a big show today. We're going to start out with the Commissioner of Worker Protection talking about used cars and the rights that you have when you walk into a dealership and a settlement that was reached. You're going to want to know and hear all about it. Next up is we have a teacher. This teacher is really going up against the establishment, the United Federation of Teachers, with a slate, hopefully to change things up so that they can have more resources in the classroom and a smaller school size. As you can see, we have much to get to, including a Lesch legal lesson. So stay tuned. Today's verdict starts right now. Okay, welcome back to today's verdict. I'm your host and trial attorney, David Lesch. We have returning with us Commissioner Peter Hatch, another big win for the agency. And this is one that I can kind of relate to because I've been in the market for used cars. Tell the viewers a little bit what you were able to accomplish, please.
Yeah, so the Department of Consumer Worker Protection has filed major cases against two used car companies, which operate 5 dealerships in Brooklyn and Queens. And they were repeatedly victimizing their customers through more than 16,000 violations of the city's consumer protection laws. So we're taking this action to put a stop to their predatory practices, get the consumers' money back, and revoke the licenses of these 5 dealerships so they can't do it again.
Listen, no one usually walks out of a used car purchase ever particularly happy with the way things worked out. And it always seemed to me, and I think we talked a little bit this off there, a little bit of a cat and mouse game. You know, you walk in there and make it seem like you don't have enough money for the car. You got to do better. Look at me. You have to help me. And the car dealer is always like, this is the best car in the world. You know, you're getting the deal of the century. So, and then somewhere in the middle, you meet. But there are legal requirements here that were not being met. Am I correct?
That's correct. What we saw in these cases, false advertising, misleading consumers about financing, misleading consumers about warranties, and submitting false applications for licenses to our agency.
Well, this one, the certified pre-owned. I see that all the time. Certified pre-owned BMW. Come on in. And you think you're getting a brand new BMW, but you're not. You're not. And if it's certified, there's a 125-point inspection, right?
So we saw repeated instances of that in the complaints we received here, where as part of the false advertising, the companies were marketing the car as a certified pre-owned when in fact the inspections hadn't been done. The warranties weren't there. And we also saw false advertising where the dealerships were advertising expired prices. They would say, you know, in their ads, the price you see is the price you pay. But in one instance, you know, we know a buyer who came in, saw a price, advertised, came in, made a down payment, and then began being rushed through the process. Was told she had poor credit so that she would have to pay a different higher price, and walked out having paid $8,000 more, which is a violation under a strengthened law in New York City, which created a used car consumer bill of rights. And that bill of rights has 8 points in it, you know, one of which is you pay the price you saw. So obviously buyers and dealers can negotiate, but you can't advertise a price you're not willing to sell the car for. The law obligates the dealers to give a printed copy of the Bill of Rights to the buyers, to get them to sign it, to make sure they're reading it, to post it in the shop. It has 2 really important components additionally. You have a right to a financing disclosure form in writing that lets you know what the sort of best rates in terms of loans are available, kind of across the market, so you can make a comparison. And also you have a right to cancel the contract. So if a buyer signs a deal for purchase, they have 2 working days to review all the paperwork without the pressure of a sales person right there. And if something doesn't work for them, doesn't fit, doesn't seem like what they thought they discussed on the lot, they can cancel the contract and get their money back.
I'm sure most people don't know this at all. They have no clue of this. They think they just go in, they buy it, and they have no rights. But what I'm also concerned with is getting somebody in the door. I always think fair game is fair game. Okay, I understand you're not supposed to say that a car is $5,000 when you walk in there, it's $7,500. That I understand. But to get them anything you can to get them in, which is fair game, we're the best, come on in, buy from us. But there are certain rules that have to be followed so that you're not getting people to come in there who can't afford the car to begin with and end up behind the 8 ball. Am I correct?
So this is an excellent point. For many New Yorkers, purchasing a used car, is a major financial investment. So we would urge consumers to do 2 things before they go out and shop for a used car. Go to our website, nyc.gov/DCWP. Get that used car consumer bill of rights. It's on our website. You can get it from us. Make sure you ask for it from your dealer as well. In addition, we've got tips for buying used cars. One of which is, review your finances ahead of time and set a budget for yourself. Know where your limits are. So as you have perhaps that fair negotiation, at the dealership, how high you can potentially go as you look for different cars. Check your credit report before you go. Work to get, a loan pre-approved ahead of time. Research the car's value. And also importantly, check with us to see if the dealership you're going to is licensed by us and is in good standing.
Guess what? I got another tip. For you because I had a state senator on here last week, Peter Skoufis, who talked about the mandating of working seatbelts in used cars.
Mm-hmm.
And that for years, and I never knew this, Commissioner, you didn't need it. They didn't have to give you a used car with a working seatbelt or with an airbag.
Right.
Who would think that you could walk out with a defective vehicle when it comes to protecting the most important thing, and that's your health and your family members' health. So it looks like used car dealers are on the map right now, and they better get ready because I'm sure it's not going to end there.
Yes.
Any last words or any last tips you want to give to somebody right now? They want to go out there and they want to buy themselves a used car. It's Christmas time. BMW and Mercedes, they're all over the air. Now's the time to get a certified pre-owned model. What's that one tip that you would tell somebody right now, the first thing you would say to them if they're watching when they want to go out and they want to buy themselves a pre-owned car? What would you tell them?
Do your own visual inspection of the car so you can check for the seat belts, make sure you've got the airbag, there's no water damage. We just had Hurricane Ida here in New York City. And if you have any complaints or any concerns, call 311, say used car, you'll get connected to our agency. We'll give you support.
Great tips. Great. And of course, Commissioner, love having you on. You do some really great work for the community. Please come back.
Absolutely.
Stay with us. Today's verdicts coming back right after this. Welcome to another installment of the Lesch legal lesson. You try and say that fast. What's today's lesson? Today's lesson is going to have to do with insurance. Lesson's going to have to do with automobiles and who you can sue and where you can recover in terms of automobile insurance. And most people, they think immediately because you're involved in an automobile accident that automatically you're going to be able to be recovering it from the other car because they caused the accident and you're done. But that's not true. And we're going to talk about two different areas. One is uninsurance, and the second one is underinsurance. Now, what do I mean by that? So let's just take two cars. Let's leave out bicycles, mopeds, or even if you're a pedestrian in your head. That's a completely different area. We'll get to that another time. But for today's Lesch legal lesson, we're going to be talking about insurance with respect to automobiles. So by law in New York State, if you own a vehicle, you must have insurance to protect those you possibly injure if you're involved in an automobile accident. But sadly, this is not always the case. Some owners don't even have insurance. So what do you do? So let's say you're involved with an accident with another vehicle. We're going to say you're the good vehicle, you're automobile A, and the bad vehicle, automobile V, hits you right in the rear. So they're obviously responsible for this accident. I mean, unless you really stopped short or did something else, basically automobile B is going to be responsible. But guess what? Automobile B doesn't have insurance. You're either the driver or the passenger of automobile A. Well, what are you supposed to do? It's a good question. So you can't sue automobile B in terms of insurance at least, but you could still do something. So you make an uninsured motorist claim against your own vehicle. Whoever owns that vehicle, and you may have been the passenger, but there is somebody who owns the vehicle you're in, you file an uninsured motorist claim within 90 days against that insurance policy. Could be Geico, could be State Farm, could be Liberty, could be Allstate, could be anybody. But you got to file it within 90 days. So which means you got to get that insurance from whoever owns the vehicle so you can file it within the 90 days. If you're going to come to me, you need that information quickly so I can file and protect you within those 90 days. Now, let's say the vehicle behind you with vehicle B does have insurance, but it's not enough. It's not enough because they only have the minimum, which is $25,000 policy. But your injury could be worth $100,000, $500,000. God forbid it's over $1 million because that's how badly you've been hurt as a result of what vehicle B did to you. Well, what do? You file an underinsured claim with your own vehicle that you're in. Again, you could either own the vehicle or you could be a passenger. You file a claim that underinsured against the vehicle that you're in. Now, hopefully, whoever the owner is has the requisite underinsurance. Maybe they have $50,000 underinsurance, $100,000 underinsurance, $500,000. So you go after the vehicle behind you for that minimum 25, but then you go for the rest of it with your own vehicle. Even though your vehicle did nothing wrong, it doesn't matter. You can go after them. Now, lastly, what if the vehicle behind you doesn't have insurance? That's not good. The vehicle you're in, you're the passenger, doesn't have any insurance. That's not good. You're not done. You got one last chance. It's an organization, it's a nonprofit organization called MVAIC, Motor Vehicle Accident Indemnification Corporation, and they will protect you for up to $25,000. But you have to go through all those other means first to make sure there's no uninsurance, underinsurance. As long as there's none of that, you can go after MVAIC, who will insure up to $25,000. I've sued them many times. I've gone to trial and taken verdicts against them many times, but they do exist and they're there to protect you. The thing is, you only have 90 days to file a claim against MVAIC. So if you have a problem, you have an issue, you've been involved in an automobile accident, call me because there are time limits and there are things that you need to do. And I promise you, we'll take care of you. That's it for the Lesch legal lesson. I'll see you next time. Okay, welcome back to today's verdict. I'm your host and a trial attorney, David Lesch. We have a very interesting topic today. We have a teacher, Annie Tan, seems to be willing to shake things up with, the rank and file members of the UFT, United Federation of Teachers. Annie, thanks for being here today.
Thank you for having me, David.
Listen, shaking up the establishment is never an easy thing to do. And I really admire the fact that you and a group is trying to do that. Could you tell a little bit about what you're trying to do to the viewers? Could you?
Absolutely. So I am a teacher. The UFT is the United Federation of Teachers. And we are, as rank and file members, running for leadership of our union because we have seen how little our union has done during the pandemic to protect our working conditions and our students' learning conditions. And so we are running against a caucus, the Unity Caucus, that has run the union for about 60 years now, and trying to make change happen for educators and students across New York City public schools.
All right, so little known fact, I grew up in the public school system of Queens, District 26, the whole way through, elementary, junior high school, and high school. So I know about class size. I was in those classes that had about 32 kids in a class.
Me too.
All right, and I survived. So my question to you is, since class size has not changed since 1963, why now?
We've seen through the pandemic that our kids need a lot more resources and staffing than has been, given to us. We see the sub shortages, we see staff leaving, right? And we need class sizes to be smaller in order to actually affect our students in the way that they need. We need more, not just class size, but we need counselors, we need nurses in every school. That wasn't even a given till the pandemic, right?
Now you're on the ground, okay? I mean,
Yes.
You're in the classroom. So if anybody sees it, it's you, okay? You can see what's behind you. We know what's important to have in a text, fiction, nonfiction. You're right there.
Yes.
What do you see in the classroom that you would say to yourself, wow, if I just had some more money and I could just allocate it to my own class, what would you do?
We need a lot more support staff for mental health right now, especially right now with the pandemic. Also just resources in general. We don't have books. I could show you over there my very sad classroom library because my students need to have books in order to love learning.
You talking textbooks, or are you talking books to read?
Chapter books, literature, nonfiction, magazines, everything that there needs to be in order for students to love learning. We learned that we needed devices, which was awesome, but there's only so far that we can go on iPads, right? We do need material resources on the ground that, don't depend on PTA funds, right? And that makes our schooling inequitable across the city.
Well, here's the thing, Andy, it always comes down to money, right? Doesn't it? And if you're going to cut a class in size from 32 to 16, and well, you need twice the amount of teachers. It's just the math. So now you got the twice the amount of the teachers. Here's what you do. Let's cut the salary of the teachers in half. Then everybody's happy. Guess what? No teacher's going to go for a cut in salary in half, right?
Yep.
No one's going to do that kind of work for half the money, but they have half the amount of students. You should get half the amount of money. Not one teacher will go for that, right?
Yep.
So what do? Where does the money going to come from to be able to give more support staff, more teachers? I'm all for more books, please. That's the most important thing. Where do you solve the problem? Where does the rubber meet the road?
Absolutely. I mean, it's a great question, and I personally am on the ground as a teacher, right? I see the material conditions. I think any teacher and every educator can tell you we need the funds, exactly as you said, right? And that comes from negotiations with the city. We're seeing that our unions doing givebacks on certain things like our retirees' healthcare, our new members' healthcare, right? and not having raises commensurate with inflation, because teachers deserve to live too.
Okay,
And
so
if we are, yeah,
that's only more money. So what I'm
Yeah.
trying to ask you is,
I understand the question. I'm just saying
Right.
that,
right, what I want to know is, what would you cut to get more money for what you want?
admin that aren't really doing much at the top, honestly.
That's fair.
We see that there are all these central office staff. We don't really know what they're doing to make material conditions on the ground better, right? We know that we're given all of these initiatives, including a social emotional screener that costs $18 million. We don't know what that money has gone to besides putting numbers into a form when we know our students, right? There's all these bloated programs that don't actually help children on the ground, and those need to be cut first. And if our union is not willing to go in and say this X, Y, and Z needs to be cut, and like is willing to collude like the UFT has, then we have a bloated system that continues to not support the needs of our students and staff.
Success in Chicago. I know you're wearing your United, your federation, or should I say you're a part of the union in Chicago. How did that influence you in terms of what you're trying to do here?
So I remember in my second year teaching, watching a sea of 10,000 Chicago educators in red striking, right? And I know here in New York City, we have a Taylor law that takes away 2 days pay for every day we strike. We don't have a willingness here as a union to take action, besides like signing a petition, wearing red yesterday to lower class size. If we had a mobilized, organized rank and file membership where we had our union teach our staff how to fight back against these initiatives in a way where we could provide the resources and time for our staff to do what we need for our students, then that would make real change on the ground. And we've seen a lot of those wins on different school levels. I know one school where they only have windows as ventilation, no HVAC units, where all the teachers get to make Corsi Rosenthal boxes so that they can actually have scientifically backed ventilation and not these HEPA filters behind me that don't have HEPA filters inside them. And that was because of organizing on the ground level. And if our union devoted resources toward that, then we become mobilized toward making change at our school sites so that our students can have better conditions as well. So in my mind, it's not just union leadership up top, like making this negotiating backdoor deals and not telling us membership what's happening. It's, we know our contract very well. We know how to enforce it at the school level, and that makes our students' learning conditions more materially better across the board.
Well, we know the elections are until the spring. Do you think as you move closer to the spring, maybe you'll get some concessions from the union that may make you decide not to put a slate up against them?
Power concedes nothing without demand, and we will always need to push back against our union leadership to make sure changes are made. You know, they made an announcement, I think on Tuesday, saying they want staff to be tested, and hours later, the DOE says staff are going to get tested. I don't know if that was colluding, if they knew about it, but there's no way they didn't know about it prior. So what we're saying is that we must continue pressure to make our union do what's right for students and staff. And that takes us as members to say those things, to know that places like Los Angeles test all students and staff weekly, when we only test 10% of unvaccinated students who given consent forms. So these things are winnable. These things have been in other municipalities' budgets, and we could win those things if we took the power to do so on the ground.
We'll leave it there. Ms. Tan, good luck.
Yes.
Hopefully you'll be successful and you'll come back, and maybe you'll come back in a couple of months and tell me how it's going.
Yes. And, every little win is a win at the end of the day.
All right, stay with us. Today's verdict has so much more right after this.
This year, New York City began using ranked choice voting in primary and special elections for local offices, such as mayor, public advocate, comptroller, borough president, and city council. Ranked choice voting means that voters can rank up to 5 candidates in order of preference, instead of casting a vote for just one. You can still vote for just one candidate if you prefer. So, how will your ballot look? Your ballot will look the same as always, except now there will be a checkbox with ranking numbers depending on how many candidates there are in a race. So how does it work? If your first choice gets over 50% of votes, they automatically win the race. If none of the candidates get more than 50% of votes on the first round, then the candidate with the least amount of votes gets eliminated, and the votes get recounted again in a second round of counting. Here's an example. Let's rank colors. I like blue the most, so I'm marking it 1. I like purple 2nd, green 3rd, and orange 4th. Okay, my votes are in. Now other votes are counted and the results are as follows. Blue earned 36%, purple earned 27%, green earned 19%, and orange earned 18%. As you can see, none of these colors earned more than 50% of the votes. So the one with the smallest amount of votes gets eliminated. Voters who chose orange as their first choice now have their votes distributed to their second choice. This continues until a candidate receives 50% of the votes and becomes the official winner of the race. That's it. That's ranked choice voting. Ready? Let's vote.
Well, that's all we have for today. I'd like to thank our guests for joining us, and of course, you, the viewers, for watching. If you have a topic or an issue that you would like to see on a future edition of Today's Verdict, feel free to email me at davidlesch@bronxnet.org. To the next time, know your issues, reach a verdict. We'll see you in 2 weeks.